Okay, so when working on these three very different titles, these three titles that have different feels to them, how does your mindset change as an editor going into these? And how does your work process change differently with each title?
That's an interesting question. Um, Interesting in that, well, Shonen Jump has a really fast production time. And my brain doing Shonen Jump is different than doing like just graphic novel releases in general. Um,
Yeah.
um, like meaning that I have less brain power when I work on Shonen Jump. Um, so with the little brain power I have left, I work on these
you're
series.
you're you're like getting those last drops of gas out of it. You're like, we're gonna push it into the final drop.
Yeah, we turn Shonen Jump around so fast. Um, but it's interesting that about the different types of series because yeah, Mashle's kind of come around full circle and has a I feel like it's a kind of evened out, but Marshall, Mashal started out kind of gaggy, and so my brain would be like, "What is the best way to render this joke?"
Yeah.
It might be like
Well, I mean, the
one
great thing about
panel.
Bachelor is so much. It's so deadpan. Like it's such dry humor, and I
Mhm.
find it absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, it's like keeping Mashal like giving him like the same deadpan feel across the series is I think is a goal because like sometimes I might see something and I'd be like Mashal wouldn't say that. I've gotten to the point where where I'm like Mash he doesn't talk like that and like I need to rearrange this line in the script or whatever. So it's like a different thought process. I go through Mashal faster than I do Undead Unluck. And that's probably because Mashal is a little more lighthearted. It does have some, obviously, there's some big battles, but overall, the series is pretty lighthearted and it does have some lore, but it doesn't have like super intense lore. And a series like Undead Unluck, every little thing means something.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the cool thing about Undead Unluck too is that I love how it calls or like plays on other mangas. Like there's little Easter eggs on in Undead Unluck. Like I think 2-3 chapters ago, like you had the Nimbus and like the
Oh, yeah.
Goku.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, even when you read throughout Undead Unluck, like there's little Easter eggs like that throughout it that I really enjoy.
Yeah. And like Undead Unluck is it's an interesting series to work on because you never know if the choice that you made is going to come back and bite you later. Um,
Yeah.
because some other chapter might be like, you might be like, we're going to use this word. And then 2 chapters later, they're like, so that word choice, very important. Because now there's a whole chapter about it. And you're like, no! So,
No, like, oh man, that's crazy. Like, but I can see that now, especially how the story goes, because things can hit a 180 on Undead Unluck and so quick. Like it's like holy shit! Like where did this come from? Like where what?
yeah, it's an interesting series. And at the beginning, when we did it, my translator, David, he's great. He's a great translator. He's also works on Kaiju. But for a while, we were getting blindsided um by like these little things that we didn't think mattered, and then like the next chapter would be like, so this is the thing, and we'd have to go back um and change lines. So that it was like for consistency's sake. So like and then on like will keep you on your toes, and so like it's like when I edit that series, like sometimes I get lost just in the editing process. And then by the time the graphic novel comes around to work on, like I'm rediscovering stuff about the series that I overlooked because I was so like focused, like hyper focused on the page. Like I'm just like, okay, or is everything flowing? And then it's like I go back and like when I do the graphic novels, it's a little bit more leisurely because I'm looking for mistakes or maybe things like smoothing out dialogue and stuff like that. And it's like I can kind of enjoy the story more. And then I'll be like, I really um the story for Undead Unluck is I really appreciate the story, the time that the mangaka has put into this is amazing. And I tell my coworker all the
Definitely.
time, like I'm like, oh wow, I'm like, this story, like when I read it in graphic novel form, I'm like, it's really actually pretty cool. Not that I didn't think it was cool before, but it's just like a new appreciation for like how everything is strung
Definitely.
together. Um, but Kaiju number 8 is it's just Kaiju number 8 is a lot of fun to work on. I really wanted to work on that series. I volunteered. It was
So you've been doing Kaiju number 8 since the first chapter.
yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah, Kaiju number 8 is definitely um I think it's a bit different than all the other titles on Shonen Jump right now. I mean, even when you just look at the main character, you have an older main character, which is something that you're not really seeing much in Shonen Jump. And know where this story is going. It took me a while. I'm not gonna lie. It took me a while to like go full fledged in on Kaiju number 8 because I was
Mhm.
like, I'm big on if I can't find a. It doesn't always have to be the main character,
Right.
but it has to be a character where I'm like, I could connect with that character. It took me a while because I was like, I don't know what character I really like on here yet. And
Mhm.
then as I began to read it, I still really haven't found that character, but I started like the story just starts drawing you in more and more. It gets so fast paced and there's so much happening. I mean, even where it's at now, where Kafka's secret's all out. You're like, oh shit! Like now, what are they gonna do? Like,
Mhm.
you meet the head director. You do this, and so I think the pacing of the story is now has completely drawn me into it.
Yeah, it does have a different feel. And I think what your point about like finding a character to like, I think is actually really interesting because I think Kaiju number 8 compared to like Undead Unluck and like Mashle and like My Hero, um, those series kind of have like a colorful cast of characters, as I like to,
Definitely a lot of
as I like to call
personalities,
them.
a lot of different personalities.
Yeah, it's the Shonen Jump way. They're like,
Mhm.
here's a group of people, like Naruto. Here, pick a clan, pick a person. Um, but and you can find someone.
Options, just
They're like,
options.
oh, you don't like the hidden leaf? Here are more villages. Like, or like here's some people for you. And Kaiju number 8 is so Kafka focused. Um,
Yeah.
and it's interesting because like there are characters surrounding him, right? But like the story is very much his story, and I don't think we've really left his perspective. I mean, we haven't left his perspective the entire time. We haven't gotten side stories with Reno. Like every story involves him in some way, and he's like the main event.